The Treaty of Peace and Friendship between, the United States and Morocco Empire, which I was showing you last time and proving that they're not talking about the Morocco in North Africa, which wasn't founded until 1956. The empire is not a state, it's a whole empire which encompasses different lands. And it actually started the idea of the republic, or the federal idea, which just means contract. It was a whole bunch of networks of kingdoms which made an empire. And that included America, and that's what's going on. And I also showed y'all proof with, let's see if I grab my phone, with looking up Marrakesh, which is so-called the capital in Morocco, the state of Morocco that you think is in North Africa now, which it is in North Africa, the state is in North Africa, I'm sorry. But the empire, which I'm showing you by looking up Marrakesh, you'll see where these words originate. See what I'm saying? And Morocco, or Marrakesh, Mauritania, all of these at that time were forming, and at that point they are all interchangeable words. You see what I'm saying? Because they're of the same original meaning. Meaning like the breath of God, the extension of that empire that made that origination, which is Rook, which means the breath of God, spirit. And then the Kesh, or Kush, is coming from the extension of Kush. That's where I'm going into, that this is extended through Kush. And how do we know? Because you can look up the Sahel trade, Sahel, which goes longitude from east to west across the Sahara Desert. You know what I'm saying? And when you look up that's a whole nother history they never told you about, because our history over here in the Americas is based on the European come up, which this is all should be exposed now, and it's like, okay. The thing is now, again, like I said, we're bringing solutions, and one of the first solutions we need is our economic identity, so we can know what we need to be in the environment. We gotta know where our butts are at, in layman's terms. But when you look up Marrakesh and you do the etymology of it, just like Morocco, same thing really. But they really tell on themselves when you look up Marrakesh, right? And that's what's going on. Marrakesh, you can see I'm doing it right in front of you. And all you gotta do, let's go to the first, okay, and the Wikipedia anybody can write it, but what they're gonna do is you can check the facts by Googling the different .govs. If you wanna go to .govs, which .govs, I won't give you too much information on it, but they slip up and give you certain things, because they gotta admit, like this, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which is that's treaty between Morocco Empire, not the state, the empire. And you have to question, why would you need the empire of Morocco if it only deals with Africa to give you permission to do business over here in America? See, because the United States wasn't over there in North Africa, it was over here in America. So this is how you know Morocco Empire encompassed America, because the natural tribal people who was copper colored skin like me had contracts with different Africans over there who had different kingdoms, just like we got different states over here, but they all under the feds. They had kingdoms that was all under one sultan, we had kingdoms that was all under one sultan. This is where you get the 5 civilized tribes from, which match the same 5 noble families over there. You know, the El Beys, Ali's, Days, the same thing in Morocco, so-called in North Africa. The ideology are the same. They matching because this is how they correlated and networked and interface when it came to national trading with each other. We've been doing that before the European come up, or British come up, after the Dark Ages, of course. And again, that's another conversation about European, because remember they were started by Etruscans, which are Africans actually. They're the ones that taught them how to make windows, how to make the languages, why most of their letters are borrowed from the Greeks, which we know who they learned from. And that was actually the hemisphere split, because now the Greeks, which used to be Yugoslavia, is Germans, Scandinavians, and people that's coming up north, Nordic people, which we know are Neanderthals, getting taught this and intermixing. When you look up the history of the Muslims and the Umayyads, if I'm saying it right, they was able to have up to 10, 15 wives. These are, some of them was even slaves. It's a name for the slave wives, for the Muslim slave wives that they had. You see what I'm saying? They had different classes of wives. So some of their babies were getting born into royalty. Some of these babies was just being ranked as normal workers. Like, this is a whole built out plan that we've been doing. This is our own curse. So that's why I'm about solutions and not complaining. This is how we get out, by knowing where our butts are at, so we know where we need to go. Yes, we killing each other. Yes, we doing all this other stuff that's destructive, but this is our curse. To see the solution, to see clear, is how we're gonna get out of it. And just keep acting on it, no matter how chaotic it look around you. And then start by, like I told you, growing food. This is why we're talking about economics. So it's gonna be more extended videos, not just to talk, as I told y'all, and I remind y'all, it's to put it in action. But and this is really saving data, because that's what life is about. I can die tomorrow. This is for my daughter. This is for everybody else to understand. This is the legacy that we all should be doing, just like they do. That's why they run a trust, and then they delegate authorities to each other. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And we're just absorbed as part of their trust because we don't understand our own importance. They're of America, if you understand that. But anyway, America, Marrakesh, or Marrakesh, same things, or Maroc. In Arabic is this. Romanized is Maracus. Maracus. If you put an A in front of that, ain't that Americas? Let me move it up because my phone cracked. If you put an A in front of the Romanized Marrakesh, ain't that Americus? Americus, Americus, the Americas. Okay then. So then you understand Morocco's empire, so-called prime or heightened time zone, which was around 1100s and 1000s with this is like right before Mansa Musa. And you start looking up damn, I can't think of their names, but you look up the different sultans in Morocco and see how the wars and the skirmishes was already at that point defeating us from within. This is how the Arabics started the slave trade, or the servitude class status, that we now think is about racism, but it was actually about classism. So with that being said, look up Morocco in the 1200s, the empire, and you'll see how they try to narrow your focus on only North Africa. And then what happens is, down the line in the 1300s when Mansa Musa came, because they've been turning lead to gold and had alchemies and teaching people in Arabic, because that was the fastest, till today, they agree that's the fastest expanded religion. And it wasn't just about religion, it was a lifestyle at that time. So they was in agreement, because they understood the power of unity, and in unison of the mind can take people far. This is why they had class servitude. It wasn't about the slavery we thought of today, because the slaves had to have some type of knowledge. See, nowadays they done reversed it, and they want all us to be dumb so we can just be workers, which is crashing our systems. If we saying ours, because we're part of the system now. But my point is this: the one that we're supposed to be running to keep this system in check, which is the Americas, because it's U.S. of America, they're subject to us. It's supposed to be the Americas, which now that you find in the 1300s, Mansa Musa, the reason why I brought him up, when you look up his brother, Abu Abari, he had recorded trips over here, because Mansa Musa used to take his homage and go pay his homage at the Mecca. This is why he had this famous stories of him trickling gold from West Africa, Ghana, and Mali, all the way to Egypt, and then all the way to the Middle East, to the Mecca. But my point is that he did this because he knew how to turn lead to gold, literally. He didn't just have diggers and mound diggers and stuff. He knew how to do the alchemical process. And you'll see it's recorded, because they all recorded stuff. We ran as a trust. We've been had this going on. That his brother took a trip over here. He been taking trips. He took a trip and so-called never came back. Anyway, so when you see that, it's not hard to realize that that word here is the reason why in Romans, because all the Romans knew on the Nordic side, was that because they say all roads lead to Rome. Rome had many roads, where they get the idea roads from, and serving people and delivering packages and goods, just like your veins. That's the blueprint, just like your body does. Anyway, the Nordic Rome, the people that wasn't seafarers, the people that wasn't real merchants, they was just local town farmers and all that. They didn't know nothing about North Africa, and damn sure ain't know about Ethiopia, which we also had a trade network with, because most of Africa was called Ethiopia in the south to them. My point is this is the point of views, because when it comes to the fact that we, the copper colored people, it was already trading with Africa, and then you have another nation who never even seen us. This is what you'll get. You'll get, just like telephone, the watered down idea of what's over there, because they never even been to North Africa for real. They was, again, stuck in Europe, Germany, all that, creating their own little society. And remember, Rome fell from having the West fraction and the East fraction already going through it. And see, this is where they trick you and make you think that's Caucasians back in the 2000 BC. That wasn't straight Caucasians. This is what the Bible was telling you. You got cream people, you had they were basically light-skinned people. This was the transformation of us meeting the Neanderthals, but that's another story. Which they admit that we had Neanderthals. What they're confusing you with is the primate stories that we came from primates. Well, no, we came from being original people. But here or there, I'm just proving us as Americans that we need to stop using two continents to identify something. And we damn sure need to stop using black, which is Negro, in the international language. It's a misnomer. It has no ethnicity, it don't have no nationality to it, has no standing, has no real substance. It's not a real definition. It's a connotation, it's a description. So, and now I'm here to prove, and I tell you not just to call yourself, I'm proving where you're from. We was here in America already. This is why they know this as Americas. That's what I'm proving to you. So what I was saying in my other videos when I was writing on the board, if you couldn't hear me, it was the fact that we have corn. And then when you go check Africa's main dish, and especially in the whether it's undeveloped areas, the villages, or the developed areas like ours, their main is corn. Whenever they say side dish, they make porridge out of it, the flour. Well, how did they get corn? If corn comes from America 8,000 BC ago, which means they go back to 6,000 BC. That's 4,000 years before Rome came to its, not the Catholic Rome, and not the Roman Catholics that came back in the 1500s. I'm talking about Rome that was back in 2000, that was in their prime. Near Egypt, Egypt allowed to do security for them. They hired them as they hired them as an army, a military for hire. This is where we get this idea from now. See, nothing new is under the sun. But my point is this, bro. How did everybody get corn if it comes from America? And it comes back before any of these civilizations reach their heightened ability to be the potential that they say now to be horticulturists, know how to hybrid and hybridize food and all this other stuff in the science. They wasn't doing that. We did that first. Rubber comes from America. We the ones that were sealing things and seal tight things because we knew how to take the lube out the tree, and we knew how to use it. We knew how to digest it. We knew what it was for. And it's a skill to do that. It's called tip time, and my people come from that. On the other side, they also do the trees and get the maple syrup out of it the same way, tip timing. But then you gotta know the trees that give out the maple syrup and the trees that give out the lubricants, because all trees don't do it. So it's a whole craft to that, which my people's was, craftsmen. Go back to even the side that they named my people was the Burgess, which took me on the discovery. I'm like, my people was a Burgess. Now, where did that last name come from? You always think it come from a plantation. But my last name on my mother's side that descended, it ended up McGee because of my grandfather. But on her mother's side is Burgess, Burgoyes, which is a German word, because the Germans started to influence our politics after the 1870s, after the Civil War, because they the ones that started to invest into all these tools and these farming tools and all these machines that America owns for now. This is why they have a monopoly on metal and craftsmanship on metal. But Burgess comes from the legislature. Look it up. Started in Virginia, one of the first colonies. The House of Burgoyes or Burgess was a people of legislators. It was known to stem from Germany as Burgesses and Burgoyes originating as being craftsmen, skilled men. And these skilled men, because the skilled men had to say so in their community in Europe, when they came over here, they ran that same type of legislation, and they started naming people burghers because that was the way, that was the people who was making the laws. Skilled people, people who was attentive and attentive, that knew how to fulfill the duties. And this is where you even get the idea of the hundreds. Look that up. This is where also my family come from on my mother's side, but that's her mother's side now too. The matriarch side, my grandmother's grandmother, mother, go back all the way to the 10th great grandmother, back to, my 13th great grandmother, going back to St. Mary's, which they started St. Mary's with the Henry Lowe and the Bennetts, and the Bennett families, you feel what I'm saying? And again, that's what led me to realize, hold up, man. She go back to my 14th great grandmother, and then we can find her grandmother, which go back to my 16th grandmother. So her mother was my 15th, but then her grandmother is my 16th. And we can find all of that, and no boats came from Africa. But I do have the one that my 15th great grandma, which is her mother, married, which is Henry Lowe, and he comes from Europe. He comes from England. And he had a whole indentured servitude paper, which I showed y'all. So look up on the rest of my videos. I showed y'all the paperwork. Got all of it printed out on Ancestry.com because we have the federal act that allowed freedom of information, the FOIA Act. So they gave everything and all the paperwork, deeds, whatever paperwork that deals with ancestry and heritage to Ancestry.com. But yeah, when you realize that we was over here already, and we have a different obligation to fulfill, then we won't be complaining about how we killing each other, but we don't have no solution. We won't be complaining about how they doing us and how the prices keep rising, inflation, if we knew what we was and where we came from and what we should be doing. Especially breaking up Black Wall Street, where once upon a time, while the U.S. was bankrupt, we had hella banks, over 150 banks, Freedmen banks. And what happened to those? But that don't mean be scared. That just shows you the potential that we have, that then and before, for empires when we go back to trade and bargaining and collective money as we got now. I mean, we traded seashells and all of this. My point is that we've been mathematical, we've been economics, we've been politicking. We started this. We gotta finish it. So that's what I was saying. Going back to corn, man. We did corn. We got rubber, bruh. Rubber comes from here, bro. We got a thing called the sweet wormwood that we have, which the Quechua people. Look them up. Quenchua. Quechua people. If I spelled it wrong, it's gonna still pop up. The Quechua people in South America. Pick that. They the ones that made up the word jerk, barbecue. And this is still our people. It's one continent. Look how they broke us apart. They made the word jerk, barbecue, and also they used to use sweet wormwood for the Q9 or the Q10, the Q and 10 that we use for facial beauty nowadays. They used to use that to defeat or treat fevers from malaria. Look it up. And the whole the pun intended to this is that this same sweet wormwood that they used to call CINCHOA, look it up. The Quechua people who used to take sweet wormwood called it CINCHOA, CINCHOA. It ended up in China, and guess what Chinese people called it? They call it artemisia now because artemisia is the man that found it. But the name for the sweet wormwood is not artemisia, which is the man that found it. That's what they just gave an attribute to. The actual scientific name or the translations that they got it from, because they got it from us, I'm trying to give it up to you, it's called CINCHOA, but they spell it different because their characters are different. That's it. Just the Q is Sing, it's Qing, HOA is how it's translated in Chinese, but you know they use their characters anyway. But that's how they try to translate it back to us, so we don't see the same. See, so we don't recognize the relation. But when you sound it out, it's CINCHOA, and you had another tribe called it CINCHOA. and the origination of the plant or the substance that they're calling CINCHOA comes from America. It's no way. If y'all let that go, there's no way. So I'm just showing you that you ancient and go back to America, and you ancient to America. So you're American. You're not gonna allow any of these foreign people, especially Caucasians, to come over here. No pun intended, no racism. This is knowledge, classism, y'all. And be here 3 generations, and now they're more American than you. Can't be. But that's why I say we defeated by our own people. Our own elders did this to us too, y'all. I ain't gonna lie to you. But that whole subliminal slavery is over. Since the first African, which was them really, because the Africans are the ones who bred them. Hint, hint. It came in 1619, which of course they was coming before that, but the colony was here allowed to come set up in 1619. We had treaties that allowed them to do that. See, the 13 colonies start off treaties that they're supposed to be able to show now, but they expired. And my point is, in 1619, the first Africans, Caucasians, popped up, and they did a contract with us, and came down to even down to Sultan of Morocco, which you don't find that on paper because they're going to hide it. They don't want you to know the time is up. 400 years from 1619, and this is how they always did slavery when it came to nation paying back retribution. This is why the Bible has that in it. This is why the Bible knew it would happen, not just because people were so psychic, because this is how they ran law. Remember, law and the natural law in nations was always ran off religion first. Legion is a legion to a nation. Y'all think religion has something just to do with only spirituality. No, spirituality is everything. So y'all got it mixed up like everything is not spiritual, which means it encompasses all. Y'all separating stuff too much. And my point is that they had us in slavery for so-called indentured servitude for 400 years. 1619, you do the math, to 2019. And boop, the world shut down, we had COVID. So this is why you need to know this knowledge, because it was that time. You see what I'm saying? So when you read this, it'll amaze your mind. And then when you look up for Americash, it'll amaze your mind. You look up the Mansa Musa story, it'll amaze your mind. And you look up the Iroquois being a derogatory name, and then finding out that they was actually called the Haudenosaunee people, which means the people of the Longhouse, which goes back to Palisades. People down south was calling the Palisades, where the word palace come from. Do you realize English, which they call it English because it's not actually from England, it was used with different lexicons because we're people of the tongues, and they use our lexicon, which means our phonetics, and wrote it down in the characters that they understood, and it made us agreed upon the understanding letters that represent the phonetics, so that we can have a common speech. And then this is when they came in, you know, trying to make everybody indoctrinated with their religion or legion. And, you know, faith in each other was different. It was way different from what we think now about just saying, oh, believe in Jesus and all that. No, way different. This was about a legion, making them pledge a legion to their nation. So to even agree to that doctrine, you even agreed to being a indentured servitude. You agreed to be part of that contract. It's a whole contract. But, yeah, we need to know this, because then we know that we were ones that was breaking down and making season. We was part of the season trade and the silk trade that they didn't bring us up in. We knew about the flood. This is why we knew that Canada was just unfreezing and all this other stuff. Yeah, those are fresh lands that was unfreezing after the floods. Like, you know this. The Native Americans with the indigenous Americans over here had stories about the flood. We knew this already. Then when you do your real research and find out India was called Hindustan at the time, and they didn't make no mistake. They understood that we had shared the trade routes and the same trade networks, which means we trade with different empires or different quantities with different empires that was of the same empire. So if that empire was trading with that empire, we try to trade with both of them too, but different things. And my point is, that's a network, that's a nation, a net ion. And Europeans, what they admit and scarcely admit is that they didn't know about them trade routes, because remember, from 2000 BC down to Jesus' time, which Jesus mentioned them, he mentioned Caesar, his empire was falling. By the 200s, they was nothing. The empire done win the war with each other. Then they had the Punic Wars with the Africans, and this was what? The Etruscans, who originally taught them this stuff, with the other dark people in mixed, sorry to say it, but the mixing, which is mixed breeds of the Scandinavians and the northern people, clearly say Neanderthals, but after this time, I think they don't mix so much. It's not just Neanderthals. These people are starting to look Persian, Palestinian now. They're mixed babies, but they're creating an uproar because this is the whole Cain and Abel story that they was all intermixed, but these people had different lifestyles. We're talking about Nordic people, Neanderthals who live a scary life and barbaric life and hunt and I don't think they even gather. They just hunt and hide. And then you have people who do agriculture who are thinkers, and of course some of our people, we had different diversities too. We're not all just thinkers and blah blah blah, but we have a different brain capacities. We had the thinkers, civilizers, people that wanted to make horticulture, and you know what I'm saying. We had bush people that just lived in the Amazons or the Congos. You can see we had this. Notice that we got the same type of mirror effect as Africa. Africa got the same type of habitats America's got. America's got all 4 habitats. Africa got all 4 habitats, except for actually they don't have winter. We experience all 4 seasons. But when I say habitats, as far as below the Cancer line and above the Cancer line, we're above and below the Cancer line. We are on both hemispheres. Africa is in the center, and they make it seem like that's the only one that does both hemispheres. But Africa and us encompass both hemispheres. America crosses west and the eastern hemisphere. Africa goes to west and eastern hemisphere. They have Congos and safari-like environments. We have Amazons and safari-like environments. Tropical environments. They got tropical environments. But my point is this: coastal environments. They have coastal environments. So that's how you trace it and go back down to the food, and you find out, damn, it gotta come back down to the food, because if you go by and trace the food, then you know who had who, or who go back to the oldest civilization, or who was the originators.